Hey folks, in this episode I'm going to show you how to make this mandala. Unlike the last one, this one is going to be animated with offsets. We're also going to be using a Fibonacci sequence of 8, 5 and 3 just to give us a rough guide so we can make it look aesthetically pleasing. So without further ado, let's get to it. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go to Edit, Preferences, and we'll go to Add-ons, and we're going to enable the Node Wrangler. So just type in Node and then enable the Node Wrangler here. Once you've enabled that, click this button, click Save Preferences. I'm also going to change the animation interpolation type to linear. So if you go to Animation over here and you scroll down, and where it says Default Interpolation, you'll also be set to Bezier. We're going to set this to linear. Okay, so I'm going to select the default cube, I'm going to hit Delete, I'll select the default lamp, I'm going to hit Delete, I'll then hit numpad 1 to go into front view, I'm going to hit Shift A, I'm going to go to Curve, and I'm going to choose Circle. I'll then hit RX90 to rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees. I'll then hit N to go into my N panel, and I'm going to scroll to Item, this Item tab at the top, and under Dimensions for X and Y, I'm going to type in 8. I'm going to enable snapping up here. I'll then hit N to close that N panel. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. I'll hit Z, and I'm going to drag this up till the origin intersects with the tip of this circle. I'll hit Shift D, Z, and I'm going to snap it to the grid till the center of this circle intersects with this circle here. So I'm going to hit Shift D, I'm going to bring this up to around about there. In fact, I'm going to zoom in. I'll then hit G, X, I'm going to snap it to the grid. Maybe if I hold down Shift, I can snap it in finer increments until it intersects with this point here. I'll hit Shift D, X, bring this across until this intersects with this point here. I'll hold down Shift to snap it in fine increments. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we'll get it as close as we can. I'll then Shift select this circle, so I've got both of these circles selected. I'm going to hit Shift D, Z, snap it to the grid. It should snap straight onto those points there. Excellent. So I'll select this center circle. I'm going to hit Shift D, right click select to snap it in place. I'll then hit N to open up my N panel, and I'm going to change the X and Y dimensions to 5. I'll then hit Shift D, Z, snap it to the grid till it intersects there. Shift D, Z, snap it to the grid till it intersects here. I'll then hit Shift D, and I'm going to snap it to the grid to there. And I want this origin point to snap to this point here. So I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to hit G, X, snap it to the grid until it intersects. You might need to hit Shift to snap in finer increments. Excellent. I'll then hit Shift D, X. I'm going to snap it to the grid till it intersects here. I'm going to zoom in just to make sure I've got that as close as I can. G, X, I'm going to hold down Shift to snap it in finer increments. Okay, excellent. I'll then Shift select this circle. I'm going to hit Shift E, Z, and it should snap straight into that intersection there. Excellent. I'll then select this circle. I'm going to hit Shift D, escape that to snap it in place. I'll then go over here on my dimensions, and for X and Y, I'm going to type in 3. I'll then hit Shift D, Z, snap it in place till it intersects here. Shift D, Z, snap it to the grid till it intersects here. And now where we want this to intersect here, I'm just going to select this circle. I'm going to hit Shift S, and I'm going to choose cursor to selected. I'll then select this circle. I'm going to hit Shift D, right click so it snaps into place, so it's in its original place there. I'll then hit Shift S and choose selection to cursor. I'll then select this one. I'll hit Shift S, cursor to selected. I'll select this, Shift D, snap it in place, Shift S, selection to cursor, and we're going to do the same over here. So I'll select this circle, Shift S, cursor to selected. I'll select this one, Shift D to duplicate, right click to snap it in place, Shift S and selection to cursor. So we just need to do that one more time. So I'm going to select this circle, I'm going to hit Shift S, cursor to selected. I'll select this item, Shift D and right click to snap it in place, Shift S and selection to cursor. I'll then go over to my collections panel over here. I'm going to select this bottom Bezier circle. I'm going to hit Control, Shift and select this top one. I'll then Control select the top one, which is the original circle, and now hit Control J, and that will join it all as one mesh. This object isn't going to be rendered. We're just going to use this as a guide. So I'm going to hit Shift C and recenter my cursor. I'll then hit N to get rid of the N panel. So let's add the curve object, which we're going to create the mandala from. So that's Shift A, go to curve, and we'll choose path. I'm then going to navigate over to my curve data over here, and I'm going to give it some thickness. So under geometry, we're going to give it a bevel thickness of 0.01. We'll change this a bit later on, but that should do for now. So with my snapping enabled, I'm going to tap into edit mode. I'm going to hit G, X. I'm going to snap snap it to the grid till that first vertex is in line with the center. Now when we move these around, we're not going to snap exactly to the control points. We're just going to use this as a rough guide, and it's certainly not going to create this shape. I'm also going to be working in this quadrant here, and I'm going to ensure not to extrude into any other part. So I'm going to box select these 4 vertices. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to drag it across. I'll then select these ones. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to drag this up to maybe around about there. I'll select these ones. I'm going to hit G, bring this up to something around about there. Maybe I'll select this one, G, I'm going to take it up to there. I'll then hit E to extrude. I'm going to bring this down to around about there. I'm going to hit E, I'm going to bring it down to there. E, I'm going to bring it down to here. E, I'm going to bring this down to here. And we're just going to work this round. So I'm going to speed up time so you don't have to tediously watch me create this first quadrant, and I'll get back to you as soon as I'm done. So when we extrude it for one last time, we're going to ensure that the last vertex aligns with the center vertex, so it ends where it begins. I'll then go up here and change my pivot point to 3D cursor. Ensure to hit Shift C and that will recenter your cursor. I'll then select all the vertices. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate that. I'll right click to snap it in place. I'll then hit RZ180 to rotate it on the Z axis by 180 degrees. I'll hit enter. I'll then select all the vertices again. I'm going to hit Shift D, right click to snap it in place. I'm going to hit RX180, hit enter, and that will rotate it on the X axis by 180 degrees. I'll then hit A to select all the vertices again. I'm going to hit Shift D, I'm going to right click to snap it in place. I'll then hit RY90 to rotate it by 90 degrees. I'll then hit A to select all the vertices. I'm going to hit Shift D, I'm going to right click to snap it in place, and I'll hit RY45, enter, and that will rotate it on the Y axis by 45 degrees. Now if I tab out of edit mode, this is what we've got. So this is the first one. I'll then zoom out. I'm going to hit G, X, and drag it on the X axis. We'll just move this out of the way, and we're going to make another one. Shift A, curve, and we'll go for path. I'll then tab into edit mode. G, I'm going to bring this across to the first vertex, is in the center. I'll then box select all of these here. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring this down to around about there. I'll then box select these. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring these down to around about here. I'll then box select these ones. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring these down to around about there. Maybe I'll select this one and I'll hit G, and I'm going to bring this around to here. And again, we're just going to be playing this extrusion game. So it's just a case of hitting E, bringing it out to where you want it, E, bringing it out to where you want it. Instead of watching me do this, I'm going to speed up time, and I'll get back to you right before I join the last vertex. Okay, again, the last vertex. I'm going to hit E, drag it up until the last vertex is in the center. Excellent. Now I'll select all of these by hitting A. I'm then going to hit Shift D. I'm going to right click to snap that back in place. RZ180 and hit enter. I'll then hit A to select all of these. I'm going to hit Shift D, RX180 to rotate it on the X axis by 180 degrees. I hit A to select all vertices. I'm going to hit Shift D. I'm going to right click to snap that in place. I'll hit RY90 to rotate it by 90 degrees on the Y axis. Select all the vertices again. Shift D, RY45. I'll then hit enter, tab out of edit mode. So this is our second mandala. I'm just going to grab this across. So I'm going to hit G, X, snap it to the grid to around about there. Shift A and curve, and we're going to choose path. I'll then tab into edit mode. G, I'm going to bring this across to the first vertex, is in the center. I'll then box select all of these vertices here. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring this up to, let's say, there. I'll then box select all of these. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring this around to there. I'll box select these. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring these around to about there. I'll then select this one. I'm going to hit G, I'm going to bring this down to about here, and then it's simply a case of hitting E, extrude, E, extrude, E, extrude, and I'm going to continue this and speed up time, and I'll get back to you just before I'm about to connect the last piece. And for the final piece, I'm going to hit E, and I'm going to snap this to the center there. I'll then hit A to select all the vertices. I'm going to hit Shift D, right mouse button click to snap it in place. RZ180 to rotate it on the X axis by 180 degrees. I hit A to select all the vertices. I'm going to hit Shift D. I'm going to right mouse button click, snap it in place. I'm going to hit RX180 to rotate it on the X axis by 180 degrees. I'll then hit A to select all the vertices. Shift D to duplicate, right click click to snap it in place, RY90 to rotate it on the y-axis by 90 degrees, and I'm going to select all the vertices again by hitting A, Shift D, RY45 to rotate it on the y-axis by 45 degrees. I'll hit enter. I'll then tab out of edit mode. I'll then go over to my curve settings over here, and I'm going to give a depth of 0.01, and the same as with this one, I'm going to give it a depth of 0.01. Okay, we'll select this curve guide. We don't need this anymore. Maybe I'll just type in curve guide. I'm going to mute this object in viewport and render. Maybe it's a good idea to rename these mandalas, so I'm going to rename mine Mandala.000. I'll then highlight that name. I'm going to hit Control C. I'll then double tap this one and hit Control V and then enter, and that should rename it in numerical order. I'll then double tap this one, hit Control V and enter. Maybe it's a good idea to move these to a collection. Left click select this one, shift left click select, and shift left click select. I'm going to hit M for move, and I'm going to click add collection, and I'm going to rename this to like and subscribe. Thanks folks, you absolute legends. I'm then going to click this button here, and that will move them all to the same collection. Maybe we can resize this one so it matches the same size as the other ones. So I'm going to hit S, just going to bring this up to around about there. I'll then hit Control A and apply the scale. So with this one, I'm going to hit G, X, I'm going to bring it across, snap it to the grid till it's in the center. This one, I'm going to hit G, X, snap it to the grid till it's in the center. Excellent. Now let's get on with animating these. This should be fairly straightforward. It looks messy at the moment, but the final result will look good because we're going to offset the endpoints. So let's just mute these first two, and we'll select this one. And the elements we're going to be animating will be the start and end mapping. So I've got 240 frames on my timeline here, 240 frames. So I'll grab my cursor to the top left until I see this crosshair. I'll then left click on my mouse and I'm going to drag, and I'm going to change this window to graph editor. We're on frame 1, so skip back to frame 1, and I'm going to set the start factor and the end factor to 0.5, so it will completely disappear. I'll then add a keyframe on the start factor and a keyframe on the end factor. Now if I go to my graph editor and click this arrow here, it will open up this start factor keyframe and the end factor keyframe. So I'm going to go to my modifiers, and on the start factor I'm going to click add modifier, and we'll choose noise. Now if I push play, it's going to go a bit erratic, so we're going to change the scale to something like 25, and I'm going to change the strength to, let's say, 2, to see what that does. Okay, it's kind of maxing out there, so we're going to reduce this number to 1.75, maybe 1.5. Okay, I'll be happy with that. Now if you want to make it loop, I'm going to click this restrict frame range. I'll then click this arrow to expand the options. We want to start on frame 1 and end on frame 240 because there's 240 frames on my timeline, and I want it to blend in over 30 frames and blend out over 30 frames. Let me just zoom in a bit so we can see what we're doing. So now if I push play, it's going to blend in, and when it gets towards the end, it's going to blend out. Excellent. So now I want to copy this modifier, so I'm going to click this button here for copy. I'm going to go to my geometry end factor. I'm going to paste that modifier in here, and we're going to offset it slightly. So maybe let's offset it by 10. See what that does. I'll then hit play. Maybe 10's a bit much. Maybe I'll offset it by 5. Okay, that looks like a good number. Now we're going to do the same for the second mandala, this one here. So with this mandala selected, the start and end factor, I'm going to set to 0.5, and I'm going to add a keyframe on frame 1 for the start and for the end. I'll then expand this window. I'm going to select this start factor, and I'm going to click paste, and that will paste the original modifier. I'm going to set the offset to 1000. I'll then click this button to duplicate that modifier. I'll select the end factor, and I'm going to paste it in here, and we're going to offset it by 5. So 1005. I'll then hit play. Looking good so far. I'll then skip to frame 1. I'm going to enable the last mandala. I'll select the last mandala, and on frame 1 I'm going to set the start and end factor to 0.5, and we'll add a keyframe on both of those. I'll then take my cursor to the top left here. I'll click this arrow to expand the keyframe data. I'll then select the geometry start factor. I'm going to click paste, and the offset I'm going to set to 2000. I'll click this button to copy that modifier. I'm going to select the end factor keyframe, and I'm going to paste that modifier in. I'll then change the offset to 2005. Now if I hit play, that's what we got for that one. Let's just select all of them, bring them all in the mix. Let's just view them one by one. Okay, I'm happy with that first one. I'm happy with that one. I'm not so happy with this one. So for the third one, I might change the offset to 3005, and for the start would be 3000. That's a bit better. So I'm going to reintroduce the other two. Excellent. You can experiment with the offset distance to get different results. I quite like them close together. So let's just get a frame where we can see quite a lot happening. Something around there, pretty cool. I'll then close the graph editor. So I'll take my cursor to the top left until I see the crosshair. I'll left click my mouse button and I'm going to drag it across and we'll collapse that window. Excellent. Now let's give these some materials. So I'm going to select the top mandala. I'm going to take my cursor to the bottom left until I see the crosshair. I'll left click and drag. I'm then going to change this window to the shader editor, and with the top mandala selected, I'm going to click new, delete the principal BSDF. I'm going to hit Shift A and we'll go for shader and we'll choose emission. I'll then plug that into the surface. Let's just go into viewport shading. I'm going to go to my world settings. I'm going to turn the strength down on my world, and I'll also mute my overlays. Maybe we can make this curve slightly thicker. So I'm going to go to my curve data over here and I'm going to increase the depth to 0.02. Maybe 0.04. Okay, maybe the first colour I'm going to choose will be a reddish pink, something around about there. I'll select the second mandala in my collections. I'm going to click new. I'm going to delete this principal BSDF. I'm going to hit Shift A and we'll go for shader and we'll choose emission shader. I'm going to plug that into the surface and I'm going to change this to maybe a purplish colour, maybe a blue, something around there. I'll also go to my curve data over here and I'm going to increase the bevel depth to 0.04, give it a bit more thickness. I'll then select the last mandala in my outliner. I'm going to click new, I'm going to select the principal BSDF, I'm going to delete that, I'm going to hit Shift A, go to shader, emission shader, I'll plug that into the surface, and maybe we'll give this kind of a minty greeny colour, something around about there. Navigate to the curve data, and I'll give a bevel thickness of 0.04. I'm just going to choose a frame that I like, something around there. Okay, I'm now going to change my render engine to cycles. You can do this in Eevee if you like, but cycles will produce better results. So I'm going to select cycles. I'm going to change it from CPU to GPU. I'll then enable denoising for my viewport, and under render I'm going to set my noise threshold to 0.025 and max samples of 128. I'm going to go to light paths. I'm going to reduce the diffuse and glossy to 3, and I'll disable reflective and refractive caustics. That should help speed up the rendering time. I'll now go to my compositing tab over here. I'm going to click use nodes. I'll go to layout. Now I need to set up my camera. So I'm going to hit numpad 1, numpad period, and that will center the view in front view. I'll then hit control alt numpad 0 and that will align the camera to view. I'm going to select my camera, go to my object data over here. I'm going to make sure it's set to 0 on the x-axis and maybe -40 on the y-axis and 0 on the z-axis, and also want the rotation on x to be 90 and y and z to be 0, so we've got a head-on view. I'll then go to my camera data over here and I'm going to change the focal length to 40mm. Excellent. I'm going to go to my viewport shading. I'm going to select this arrow. I'm going to go to scene lights and scene world, just so what we see in the viewport is the same as what we see in render. Okay, I'm then going to hit F12 to render out that frame. I'll then close that window. I'm going to go to my compositor, and with the render layer selected, I'm going to hit Control, Shift and left click select, and that will open up a viewer node here. I'm then going to hold down Shift and right mouse button and drag, and that'll add this noodle point. I'll just drag this down. Just going to drag this across, and I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to click Fit. So now I'll drag this over here so we can see what we're doing. So I think I want to add sunbeams to this. So I'm going to hit Shift A, go to Filter, and we're going to choose Sunbeams. I'll pop this in between here. I'm going to set the ray length to 0.5. Okay, I'm then going to hit Shift A, go to Color, Mix, and Alpha Over. I'm going to pop this in here. I'm going to plug the sunbeams into the bottom socket and the original image into the top socket, and I'm going to set the mix factor to 0.5. Okay. Now these sunbeams are sharp. I want sharp and blurry sunbeams, so I'm going to duplicate this alpha over node, so that's Shift D. I'm going to pop that into here. I'll then take this image into the bottom socket over here. I'll just drag this across. I'll then hit Shift A, go for filter and blur, and we're going to choose blur. I'm going to change this from Gaussian to fast Gaussian, select this relative tab, and we're going to change the X and Y to 2%. I'll then pop this into the top noodle so we can flip between blurry sunbeams or the sharp sunbeams. And I'm going to change the mix factor to 0.5. So we've got blurry beams but maintaining the sharpness. I think I want to add a bit of bloom onto the mandala. So I'm going to choose this alpha over node. I'm going to hit Shift D. I'm going to pop this at the end of the node tree. I'll then plug this alpha over into the bottom socket and the original image into the top socket. I'll then hit Shift A and I'm going to go for filter and we'll choose glare, and I'm going to pop this in between here and we're going to change it from streaks to bloom. Maybe I'll set the threshold to 0.5 and I'll set the size to 4. Let's see what that does. Should just make it pop a bit more. Okay, that's looking good so far. I think we can do without this alpha over. So I'm just going to plug the sunbeams into the bottom socket of this alpha over and I'm going to delete this alpha over. Okay, I might change this cherry color slightly. So I'm going to go back to my layout. I'll then select this mandala, just disable my overlays. So I'm going to change it from this cherry pink red to more of a reddish color, maybe something around there. Maybe I can change this blue one as well to something around about there. I'll re-enable my overlays. I'm going to go to viewport shading. The next thing I'll do is I'm going to hit Shift A and we'll go for mesh and we'll choose UV sphere. I'll then hit numpad 1 to go into front view. I'll then hit S, hold down control to snap it to the grid until it encompasses the entire mandala, something around there. I'll then hit numpad 7 to go into top view. I'm going to hit Control A and apply the scale. I'll then tab into edit mode. I'm going to go to wireframe view. Make sure that you've got X-ray enabled. I'll then box select all of these vertices here and I'm going to hit X and delete vertices. So we've got half a sphere. Excellent. I'll then tab out of edit mode. I'm going to go to viewport shading and I'm going to hit Z, shade smooth and hit Control 2, which will add a subdivision surface at level 2. I'll then go to my materials. I'm going to click new. I'll just drag this up. I'm going to change it to metallic and I'm going to turn the roughness all the way down to 0. So with this sphere selected, I'm going to go to my object data over here. I'll then scale it on the y-axis by 0.5. So that's SY 0.5 and then hit enter, and over here under the object data you can see that's reflected there. So now if I go into camera view, numpad 0 and go into rendered view, you can kind of see it's added these duplicates. If I mute the sphere, that's what we've got before, and I'll enable the sphere and that's what we got after. I don't want the reflections of the mandala to be as bright as the original, so I'm going to take the base color on this principal BSDF and I'm going to drop the value to maybe 0.25. As you can see, they're a little bit darker now. I want to animate the Y scale on this. So maybe on frame 1, I can set this to 0. I'm going to add a keyframe. On the last frame, I'm going to keep it as 0. The middle keyframe, I'll also set this to 0. Maybe on frame 60, I'm going to set this to 0. So I'll add another keyframe. And on frame 180, I'm going to also add another keyframe. Now in between all these, so frame 30, I'm going to set this to, let's say, 0.5. I'm going to add a keyframe. On frame 90, I'm going to set this to 0.5. I'm going to add a keyframe. And then on frame 150, I'm going to set this to 0.5. We'll add another keyframe. And finally, on frame 210, we'll set this to 0.5 and I'll add a keyframe. I'm going to hit play. You can see that this is just going to be pulsing in and out. If I hit numpad 0 to go into front view, I'm going to go into rendered view. I'll hit play. You can kind of see what's going on here. It's a bit difficult with my viewport here. I'm just going to choose the frame that I like to render out, just to preview it. Okay, I'm going to render out this frame, see what we've got. Okay, I kind of like the look of that. So with the sphere selected, this sphere, let's just go to a frame where it's extruded. You don't have to have this set to smooth. You can hit Z and shade flat and then you get a completely different pattern. But go to your modifiers, maybe disable your modifier, you get a completely different look. So I'm going to hit Z and shade smooth. I'm going to enable my subdivision surface modifier, and for a different look I'm going to mute the sphere. I'm going to go back to my viewport shading, so I'm going to hit Shift A, go to mesh, plane. I'll then hit R, X, 90, rotate it on the X-axis by 90 degrees. I'm going to hit numpad 1 to go into front view, S and 10 to scale it up by 10, maybe S2, scale it up 2 more, Control A and apply the scale, numpad 3 to go into side view, G, Y, just going to drag this back to maybe around about there. I'll then hit numpad 0 to go into front view. I'm going to go into rendered view. I'll then click new to add a material. I'm going to change this to metallic. Maybe I can bring this plane forward a bit. So I'm going to go to my object data and I'm going to set the Y distance to 0.1. Maybe I can set the roughness to 0.75. I'll hit F12 just to render out that image, see what we've got. Okay, I just need a couple more adjustments on here. I'm not really happy with that green or that red, so I'm going to change the colour of the green. So I'm going to select the green mandala and I'm going to change this to more of an aqua. I'll then select this red and I'm going to change this to more of a pink, something around about there. I'm also going to go to my rendered tab over here. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. I'm going to go to color management. I'm going to keep it on AGX, but I'm going to change the look to medium high contrast, maybe high contrast. And we're also going to change some of the compositing. So I'll go to viewport shading. I'm going to go to my overlays. I'm going to go to compositing and I'm going to reduce the sunbeams. So I'm going to set this to 0.4 and maybe reduce the bloom. So I'm going to drop this down a couple of notches. Okay. I'll go to my layout, I'll then select my camera, I'm going to go into rendered view just to see what we've got. Maybe I'll select a random frame, something like that. I'll then go to viewport shading, I'm going to hit F12, render out that frame. Okay, I like the look of that. Let's just select another random frame, hit F12. Okay, it's looking good so far. I'm going to go to my viewport shading over here. I'm going to save the project. I've already saved my file, so I'm just going to hit Control S and click Save. You should probably go File, Save As, and then save it in a location of your choosing. I then go over here to Output, and I'm going to choose a folder where I'm going to save my image sequence. I'm going to save mine in a folder called Like and Subscribe. I'm going to keep mine set to PNG. Usually I'd use OpenEXR, but this scene doesn't require much dynamic range or anything like that. So I'm just going to set mine as a PNG sequence, set to RGB, 16-bit, and maybe compression value of 25%, just to reduce the file size. So when you've finished rendering out your image sequence, open it up in a video editor of your choice, drag the images into the video editor, and then render it out as an MPEG-4. So I'm just going to hit Control F12, and that will render out my image sequence. So that's all for now, folks. I hope you found this useful. Have a great day, level up, and thanks for watching.